Hello and welcome to NJ Biz Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Kanaj. My guest today is Anthony Attanasio. He is the founder and CEO of Hawk Strategies, which is a transportation and infrastructure consulting firm based in Somerville. Anthony, welcome.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Great to be here.
Oh, thanks for taking the time to do it. I appreciate it. First of all, as I understand it, the firm is celebrating 5 years in business this year, so congratulations on that milestone.
Thank you.
And that's where I wanted to start with the firm itself. What should our viewers know about Hawk Strategies? What sets you apart from other consulting firms in this area?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Yeah, we're very proud of our 5-year milestone. And several of our clients have alluded, you made it when you know 5 years in business and the momentum that comes with it. So we're very proud of that. Hawk Strategies was started. I started Hawk Strategies obviously 5 years ago, based on kind of a accumulation of my career to that point. And so I started out in campaigns and politics, and everything from sticking the lawn signs in the ground to eventually running campaigns and being a political consultant. I had my own consulting firm when I was 27, Lincoln Solutions. As you can tell, I'm a big
Right.
supporter and fan of our greatest president. Um, so I did campaigns and politics. When Governor Christie was elected, my mentor, Rich Bagger, became his first chief of staff. And Rich sent me over to Jim Weinstein at New Jersey Transit. And originally, I was actually supposed to go to another state to help run a US Senate race.
Mhm.
And Mr. Weinstein said, "Well, Anthony, we'd rather have you work for us." So
Okay. Okay.
he made me the deputy chief of staff of New Jersey Transit. Uh, my career in government was very eventful. I was at New Jersey Transit when the ARC tunnel was canceled, which was a
Okay.
terrible policy decision, but one we have to live with.
We're going to get to that, or
Okay.
issues surrounding that later. But let's
Yeah,
keep going.
sure. Sure. So I was at Transit when ARC was canceled, unfortunately. And then due to my work, I was promoted to assistant commissioner of the Department of Transportation. And then, as my former commissioner used to say, when Governor Christie was elected, Mother Nature became a Democrat, because we had already been dealing with a lot of those snowstorms and the blizzards. And then I got to DOT, and then we had Hurricane Irene, Superstorm Sandy. There was an earthquake the one summer. I mean, it was really a truly a constant emergency. It felt like
Mhm.
keep the work of the department moving. So that was a fascinating time to be in state government. After DOT, I was recruited by the UTCA, which is New Jersey's premier contractor association, and was there for 4 years. Very proudly got the Transportation Trust Fund renewal done with our CEO, Bob Bryant, back in 2016. That was the first meaningful renewal of the trust fund in almost 25 years. So that was quite a proud accomplishment. After that, I was recruited to go to AECOM, which is the world's largest engineering and
Right.
consulting firm.
Sure.
I still represent them. I love them, but that's really where Hawk Strategies started to be born, because as much as I love AECOM and the people I worked with there, it wasn't a good fit for me as a professional. The very rigorous corporate structure and whatnot. Whereas I'm more of an operative. I like strategy. I like to find the problem, identify a solution and a strategy, and implement. And so I kind of looked at what I just told you, my political career, government leadership, construction industry leadership, engineering leadership. And I said, you know what? I think I decided, God bless America, to be an entrepreneur. And I decided to leave a vice presidency at a Fortune 200 company to start my own small business, which was quite a risk. Little did I know COVID would be around the corner a year later. But here we are 5 years later. We represent contractors, engineers, outdoor advertisers, Rutgers University, and a myriad of clients, servicing them in a myriad of different ways, whether it be agency interaction, business development, marketing, and many others. And so
Okay.
that's how we got here today.
All right. And I was gonna you anticipated the question of what kind of clients do you have and how the firm has grown over the years. What kind of work do you do for say Rutgers University or some of the other big some of the other clients that you have, and how has what has been the sort of progression of the firm over the years in terms of who
Yeah,
you
no,
work with?
that's a great question, because I started the firm, and within 5 minutes of starting the firm, I hired my former number two, John Case, from DOT. John had been my number two. When I went to UTCA, he became the assistant commissioner and then went on to be the chief of staff of DOT. So when I started the firm, we were far more focused on the Department of Transportation, also New Jersey Turnpike and New Jersey Transit, the agencies I had direct leadership involvement with. And we were really looking to be kind of that conduit with the agencies and the industries, try to help them deliver projects and solve problems. We've really, to answer your question, we have morphed into so much more than that. John now manages our DOT practice, but we have a full marketing arm. We run the marketing, the website, social media, graphic design for the state's largest civil contractor, for the region's largest pavement preservation contractor, amongst others. For Rutgers University, we represent CATE, the Center for Advanced Infrastructure and Transportation, and we're helping bring awareness to the work that they do there, while also looking to get a brand new world-class asphalt pavement lab built,
Mm.
because the current laboratory is housed in an old World War II warehouse. And and it's Rutgers University. They do amazing work. They're a national leader in their field, and yet they're working out of a warehouse they can't climate control in the dead of winter or summer.
Okay.
And so the work we do went from trying to help folks navigate the intricacies of state agencies, which as we know are difficult, to now more affirmational. And we're marketing, we're growing, we're creating new opportunities for clients. We're in the utility world as well. We're not just in DOT transportation anymore. So we've gone from a transportation consultancy to an infrastructure consultancy.
Okay. All right. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned all the kinds of things that you do, because I notice you have an art director, which suggests that you do have sort of a creative arm to what your work is.
Yeah, so what I've discovered too, especially with contractors more so than some of our other clients, is everyone understands there's a need for marketing. Everyone understands there's a need to promote their company and the work that they do. A lot of contractors work in a low bid environment though. So there's been a bit of an education, but some of the more sophisticated clients that we have, or contractors, I should say, that have brought us on as clients, recognize the need to promote their name and brand for the work that they do. So, like I said, we've built websites for an ENR top 400 contractor. We manage social media, and we get the message out about the good that they're doing in the communities. So, when you think about construction and contractors in the world I work in, these are all public works projects, right? We
Right.
are delivering infrastructure to make taxpayers and citizens' lives better. And why wouldn't the contractor promote that work? And so we really enjoy doing that.
Okay. Earlier this year, you announced the strategic partnership with Porzio Government Affairs that grew out of Porzio, Bromberg and Newman, a law firm. What was the rationale for that, and how is it working now? I mean, I think you announced it in January, so here we are
Yeah.
in June. You've had almost half a year. How's it going? What was the thinking behind it, and how are you doing? How's it working out?
Sure, it's been working out great. Porzio is a fantastic firm, both the law firm and the lobbying arm. We primarily work with the lobbying
Right.
firm, Porzio Governmental Affairs, but we work to help and support the law firm too. This was born out of some work I did in South Jersey, trying to support the folks in the Atlantic County region, try to enhance transit awareness in South Jersey.
Mhm.
The vice chair of the Atlantic City Chamber of Commerce, Barbara DeMarco, is one of the principals at Porzio. So she took notice. She asked to sit down, and what they did was they came to us, and John and I at Hawk are basically strategic advisors. We provide counsel to them and their clients on transportation and infrastructure issues. And we're also, of course, cross marketing, looking to find new clients together. So partnership's been going great. They're a great firm to work with.
Okay, good. All right. Well, if we could, I'd like to talk about a little bit of what's going on in transportation and infrastructure around the state. Our viewers are certainly aware that there's been a lot of activity recently, given the amount of federal funding and state funding that's flowing into the region. I'm curious what you think are the biggest priorities. What are the most important projects right now that is going on? Is it the Hudson River Tunnel project? Is it offshore wind? All of the above? I mean, what do you think are the most pressing needs right now?
Yeah, I would suggest both from regional and national significance that the Gateway program is
Right.
the most important public works project in the country.
Mhm.
ARC was too when it
Right.
was canceled.
Mhm.
And Gateway, thank goodness, many of us thought it would take a generation or more to get another Trans Hudson project online.
Right.
But thankfully, the Gateway project program is moving forward. So I would suggest that as the most important.
Okay.
Um,
I think
as
everyone would agree at this
yeah,
point.
yes. Regionally and as far as the state is concerned, you know, um, I would suggest the biggest issue that we're facing as a state, as many states are, because I'm involved nationally on behalf of UTCA still on their national. The biggest issue a lot of us are facing are that our state agencies are losing a tremendous amount of institutional knowledge and not necessarily retaining the new employees they bring in. Employee retention, succession planning, and morale at state agencies. That's going to be the biggest issue, is because we have in my entire career in transportation, we've never been as well funded as we are today.
Right.
However, the agencies have seen such loss of institutional knowledge that their ability to deliver the programs is getting more difficult. So from a almost policy or political, whatever you want, not political, policy standpoint. And in 2016, when I was testifying for the Transportation Trust Fund renewal, then I testified 7 times, and each time I said, we can have all the money in the world, but if we don't adhere to the health of the agencies,
Mhm.
it won't matter because we won't be able to get the capital programs out. I think we're getting close to that point where we're going to start sweating about getting the capital program out if we don't provide more support to the agencies.
Okay, well, that's interesting because there's a couple things involved there. First of all, I hear that from people in the private sector all the time about how difficult it is to attract and retain talented workers. We hear constantly about how New Jersey's workforce is highly educated, highly skilled, but it's still very difficult out there. And what I hear you saying is that that's a problem, even in the government world.
Well, very much so, because I mean, in the public sector, once upon a time, right, the benefits package was so robust that it made up for less salary, right? The reality is you're not going to make the same money as a public sector public servant as you are in the private sector, most likely, especially in our world of engineering, right? You're going to make more for a private consultant engineer. However, the work you're doing, I mean, I grew up taught to appreciate public service. That's just how I was raised. And so, for some, they saw it as a career and a mission to spend 30 to 40 years at an agency delivering, right, a program. Now, like many folks in the younger generations, I think a lot of folks see themselves as free agents, right? So you come into the
Sure.
department, you get 5 or 6 years experience, you get your professional engineering license, and then you leave to go make more money
Start a
because
consulting firm.
right, literally. I mean, and some of the consulting firms I work for are constantly looking to hire people out of the agencies. Meanwhile, the consulting firms can't find enough people
Right,
either. So
right.
it really is a hamster wheel that we kind of have to, I think, globally figure out.
Right. Okay. And then the other part of that then is back in a couple of years ago when money did start to flow, particularly from the federal government, there was a lot of criticism that the work that it wasn't being deployed quickly enough here in New Jersey. That there were sorts of delays and issues with permitting and different levels of government. A, did you see the same thing? B, is it still happening? And C, is it going to be exacerbated by the problem you're talking about recruiting and retention in the agencies?
Okay, so no,
A lot there. I'm sorry, but
yeah,
it's basically,
no.
are
And
we
like,
spending the money that we need to spend quickly?
and Jeff, this is what I do. I love talking about what I do. I love what I do for a living. So no, I'm happy to. I would suggest that it wasn't as bad as some would say.
Okay.
The problem with, and you know this, and you're with marketing and delivery, a lot of marketing was put into the passing of the ILJA, and it was the most significant federal investment in infrastructure since Eisenhower.
Right.
So it was. But when you announce it as this big, wonderful thing that's going to come riding into town, and then you front load the first 2 years of the program with the regulatory and administrative ramp up and implementation,
Mhm.
it feels like there's no money coming, right?
Right.
So the agencies did receive increased funding, but I would suggest that in 2024, 5, 6, this is where you're going to see the money come flying into the state because all the regulatory and administrative pieces were done up front.
Okay.
I think they might have done better to have either had a little bit more money up front or at least explain better that in order to introduce billions of dollars of new federal funding to these states, that there needed to be regulatory adjustments made, right? I mean,
Okay.
so that's what we're out of that phase and we're about to see the bigger influx. And I would suggest that Governor Murphy and Commissioner Scicchetti and now Commissioner O'Connor, but especially Commissioner Scicchetti, now Chief Scicchetti, did a great job of managing the federal funds and not having that clock tick down where we were in danger of losing funds. In fact,
Right.
we've been
That
able to
was
get,
that was the criticism that if it wasn't moving quickly enough, we could lose that money.
and this administration actually was successful in getting money, federal money from other states that hadn't spent it.
Okay.
So no, I
Interesting.
do think
Okay.
because we have such a great department and great agencies, they're hanging on longer while dealing with the same staffing issues that everyone else around them is dealing with. We've had strong leadership. There's great assistant commissioners at the agency. Turnpike and Transit have excellent leadership as well. But eventually, you run out of time if, right, you don't address some problems. So the money is going to start flowing hard. I think we're ready for it in the short term, but I do think systemically we need to be looking at the health of our agencies.
Okay.
Long.
Well, let's look at the health of one of those agencies, the one you mentioned before, NJ Transit.
Mhm.
As someone who spent 30 years commuting every day on NJ Transit, I know the problems very well. The governor has said he's going to fix New Jersey Transit, even if it kills him. What first of all is the Gateway project the answer to most of the problems, or is there still, once that's finished and once that's up and running, is there still a systemic problem that I'm thinking particularly in terms of day-to-day funding of NJ Transit that has to be solved?
Oh, yes, 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 and yes.
Okay.
So, a lot of this does go back to the previous administration and the canceling of the ARC tunnel.
Right.
When the ARC tunnel was canceled, the cash inside of the project, which came from the Port Authority and the Turnpike, the Port Authority money went because the bond covenants of the Port Authority had to be used for Pulaski, Whit Penn Bridge, Route 109 New Road. But the $1.25 billion of Turnpike money was sent over to the trust fund to be the PAYGO component of the 2016 renewal. Excuse me, I just leapt forward a few years. This was 2011.
Okay.
The $125 million that was taken out of ARC and put into the trust fund never became PAYGO. What happened was it was then sent back to Treasury and sent to New Jersey Transit to replace at a clip of $300 million a year, 300 million of their operating subsidy. When that money from the Turnpike ran out, the 300 million never got replaced.
Okay.
And so I would suggest that while the Gateway program is going to solve our Trans-Hudson capacity issues,
Right.
it's going to turn almost all of our lines into one-seat rides. I grew up on the Raritan Valley line. I still live on the Raritan Valley line. And you mentioned commuting for 30 years. My father commuted for that time. I still remember the running down track 1 over to track 5, to get to New
Right.
York.
Yep.
Those issues will be solved. The actual operational and commuter experience issues of getting to New York in a one-seat ride will be solved. And I would also suggest that President and CEO Kevin Corbett and his team, it is night and day how the agency is being ran compared to before they got there.
Okay.
They got PTC done in record time.
Yes.
On-time performance
Indeed.
has increased. I mean, I can even tell you because I'm there a lot, the morale at the agency has increased. So New Jersey Transit is in a better position than it's been in a long time, except they have a systemic funding hole in their operating subsidy.
Right.
And that requires them every year to transfer hundreds of millions of dollars of their capital funding to operating. Over the last 10 years, over $7 billion of capital has been sent over to operating just to keep the lights on. I
Right.
mean, you were a commuter. I work in this industry. What do you think $7 billion invested into the New Jersey transit system could do?
Right.
So
Right.
there's a bigger problem. It needs to be solved. I would suggest also anyone who thinks that you can squeeze more money out of them to get them to make their budget, that's just not realistic. The agency needs more operational funding, period.
Right. Okay. All right. Just so our viewers know, PTC is positive train control. That's sort of a braking system, automatic braking system to prevent accidents. After that horrible thing that happened in Hoboken, it became a major issue. And yes, there was a deadline that New Jersey Transit actually did meet, as far as I recall. Yes.
Right. But at
Okay.
the end of the previous administration, that project was only 13% complete.
Okay.
And within a year and a half max of Kevin Corbett being at New Jersey Transit and with Commissioner Schetti as chair, they got PTs done in a year and a half
Okay.
when it had been lagging for years. So that's where everybody likes look. It's easy to use transit as a whack-a-mole. People are used to doing that. But I would suggest the agency is in a far better place than it was 6 years ago. But if we don't fund them, it won't stay that way.
Okay. All right. Another thing you mentioned at the top, all of the various natural disasters that you had to deal with: Superstorm Sandy, Hurricane Irene. I'm
Yep.
curious as to whether you think that the state is putting enough emphasis or even resources into that kind of resilience in the face. The state's obviously vulnerable to climate change. And we saw what happened during Sandy, particularly with we'll go back to New Jersey Transit with how difficult it was for them to keep the trains dry and get them back running again. Again, how important is that issue of resilience and sustainability in the face of what's clearly becoming a major problem?
Yeah, so I will tell you the agencies have taken a much more hardened approach to resiliency and sustainability especially after well, both Irene and Sandy, there were such different incidents, right? Irene was a water incident, and Sandy was a wind incident, right? But they were both extremely destructive. One of the things New Jersey Transit discovered was how many of their substations were below updated flood lines, right? You know what I mean? And so all of that work got done or is being done. Look, the weather has gotten more severe. I mean, I remember I joined the planning board in my hometown when I was 25, and I had to lean over to the guy next to me and ask him what the 100-year storm was. I didn't, and he explained it to me. Well, when I was assistant commissioner of the DOT, we experienced two 500-year storms.
Wow. Okay.
Right? So So we can't ignore what's happening. Weather is getting more erratic, and we have to prepare for it. I would suggest that our road network, our bridge network, it's strong and able to sustain 100-year plus storms, right? But yes, there has been a new adherence to resiliency. John Keller, the former executive director of the Turnpike, who's now with Deloitte, he's doing a lot of that work in the private sector, trying to bring private sector ingenuity to the public sector. And I think that's something we need to be doing a lot more of too as a state, is harnessing the ingenuity of the private sector more. I think we have too many old traditional models of how we deliver projects and how we, it's probably time to update the model more.
Okay, all right. All right. So before I let you've been generous with your time, I appreciate it. Before I let you go, I'm just curious. You mentioned that some of the money that had been flowing into transportation infrastructure projects would start to. I don't want to mean to put words in your mouth, but what I heard you saying was that there was going to be some evidence of actual work going on. I'm curious, what can New Jerseyans expect over the next, say, year or so? Are we going to start to see those shovels actually digging dirt and construction barrels out on the highways, on the bridges, on the on the Portal North Bridge being replaced? I mean, is that going to be in evidence over the next, say, 12 months?
12 to 24 months for sure. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, the reality is that, like I said, for the first 2 years of ILJA, it was a lot of paperwork, right? It was a lot of regulatory implementation and, and process. The money's now going to start to flow in much larger clips. It's either formula funding, so it'll go straight to DOT. And there's also a lot of grant-based and applicant-based programs. So the state's going to have to go after some of the money. But I would suggest to you that a year from now, if we got back together, I would be able to point to several projects and say to you, there's the federal influx starting to show itself more.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, I will take you up on that. Anytime you want to come back and talk about this stuff, give us an
Oh,
update.
yeah,
That'd be great.
absolutely. Anytime. I love promoting what we do. Infrastructure and transportation is quite often not seen as one of the sexier topics in politics and in whatnot. But the reality
Oh, it
is
is
that
now. It is
it is
now. Don't you think?
becoming. Yeah, from the beginning of my career until now, it wasn't. People never thought politicians didn't want to talk about it, but the reality is that infrastructure is the lifeblood of this country, right? And so it's exciting times in New Jersey. Hopefully, we're going to be building our way to a better economy, and happy to be a part of that. So, thank you so
Well,
much for the opportunity to talk about all this
oh
today.
well. Thanks for taking the time. And as I said, I look forward to continuing the discussion at some other point. Anthony Attanasio, founder and CEO of Hawk Strategies. Thank you very much for taking the time. I appreciate you joining me.
Thank you, Jeff. Have a great day.
Thanks, and thank you all for watching. Until next time, stay safe, everyone.